Hello again, I am Blunty. So yesterday afternoon I tweeted a screen cap of an article from the UK's Daily Telegraph newspaper, a publication that I think can be fairly described as a conservative, middle class and right-leaning paper, and can somewhat more colourfully be described as a den of syphilitic lunatics feverishly smashing dipshittery and hatred into the vague shape of English for the consumption of, I suppose, humans. I came across it as someone I follow on Twitter retweeted it from someone they follow, and all of a sudden in my timeline I saw the words, "Woke men are ruining beards for the rest of us. Not long ago, facial hair was all but ubiquitous. Now, innocent men risk being mistaken for insufferable left-wing beardsplainers." Beardsplainers, terrific, I love it. Unfortunately, I was laughing so hard it became impossible for me to see through the tears of uncontrolled emotion sufficiently to read the full article. So I did a few seconds of Twitter search and found the source that inspired this word craftery. See, JK Rowling, the moist sack of semi-sentient hate slime pressed into the form of a desperately out-of-touch one-percenter, called some dude that tried to point out that maybe undermining or dismissing the death and suffering of LGBT people during something called the Holocaust is probably not a super good idea, you know, optically, and she then dismissed him as a beardsplainer. JK's been on a bit of an extra furious tear lately, as she always is just before a book or a movie she stands to profit from is about to launch. Weird. Problem is, the author of the article in question and the context of the exchange JK decided to highlight as a moment of manly misogynism is, well, JK's heroic downtrodden woman is, and there is no other way to put this, she was flatly denying that old funny mustached German man was horrifically murdering a whole bunch of gays alongside the Jewish folk as well. Claiming that, well, if they wanted the gays dead, they would have gas chambered them. For the record, that is precisely what they did do. So, old JK is jumping to the defense of that kind of person. As always, turfness is only one step behind actual white supremacist Holocaust-denying goose-stepping, stiff-arm saluting rhetoric, and that has never been a secret. And as JK tumbles ever downward in her extremist radicalization, I'd like to point out that some people have been telling you this has been coming for quite some time. It never stops at just one little minority group. Never ever. But beardsplainer is a terrific word. I love me some word smooshing. I do it all the time. Wordplay is terrific fun, and I want to break it down, the cleverness of it, and ultimately the subtle yet hilarious way in which JK, a famously turfy and woman is a dirty word girl boss, has self-defeated herself in a pretty amazing way. Own gold, big time. But first, we must look at the inspiration for her wordplay. See, beardsplaining is of course a play on the portmanteau word from our very own world of digital discourse, mansplaining. And mansplaining is most commonly defined as unsolicited technical explanations of something by a man, and very typically to a woman, in a way the woman and those witnessing the exchange would probably regard as condescending, or rather more specifically, patronizing. And patronizing in this context means an info dump that the speaker probably intends as helpful in their own mind, but also betrays their own feeling of intellectual superiority, given their own assumption that their target is ignorant or misinformed or just too stupid to know better, so we better inform them. And I've no doubt you've all seen, likely experienced, a purer mansplaining moment. Share it in the down below if you will. They're often pretty damn funny in retrospect from the outside looking in, if only for the utter lack of self-awareness of the mansplainer in question. Back to beardsplaining, after a long divergence to explain mansplaining in a way that was done with no irony in my intent at all. Hoink. You see, the thing I love about JK inventing the word beardsplainer is it can be read as a wonderful own goal of sorts. About 2 years ago, JK made a tweet that went crazy viral. It's been in the vein of many of her tweets. But this specific one was complaining about the use of the phrase people who menstruate, used in a way intended to be inclusive of the medical health concerns of trans men. JK exclaimed with only the kind of bitter and petty derision that she can muster, "I'm sure there used to be a word for these people. Someone help me out. Wimben? Wimpund? Wumud?" The argument, of course, is that by using inclusive language in reference to the health and general medical needs and requirements of menstruation, sanitary pads and the like, for example, there is an implication that somehow it magically erases the word woman from our entire lexicon of words. Or more specifically, it erases women themselves somehow. Because that's how words work. I mean, we've seen it happen in our society already. We've seen that, when we started calling them firefighters instead of firemen, recognizing that occasionally women do that job too, suddenly all emergency workers' testosterone exploded, which of course sparked a fire that destroyed 80% of Detroit, the manliest city in America, because that's where they make the manliest manly cars, muscle cars, the manliest form of the manliest transport, the car. Cars so masculine, they have to be called muscle cars. Chew on that one while we round the final corner to my final beardsplaining gem. Aren't gender stereotypes fun, by the way? So, JK whines about gender-inclusive language, imagining in what remains of her feebled and genitals-obsessed brain that it will be the literal doom of all real women. Meanwhile, despite a perfectly gendered term already existing for the phenomenon she's trying to label, mansplaining, she instead chose to invent a whole new word for exactly the same thing, but this time eliminating the sex gender word man and replacing it with beard. And while beard is something most assigned male at both folk, real men, in JK's world I suppose, are capable of growing, and a beard itself commonly being considered a manly thing as far as our social constructs are concerned. Not all men can grow a beard though. I once knew a dude who simply had no beard at all, didn't even need to shave, ever. He was quite envious of mine, in fact, and it came up in conversation frequently. I once knew a girl who had quite a significant set of sideburns on her, and a moustache, which, given the gendered expectations and the subsequent feminine beauty ideals, she was very, very sensitive about and routinely went about waxing and bleaching and whatever else she could do to minimize its visibility. And much to the absolute horror of JK, I'm sure, many trans men who've chosen to transition with the help of hormone replacement therapy will, despite their assigned gender at birth, happily and enthusiastically grow a lovingly tended beard of their very own. And some others just leave it really scrappy and hideous. I like a tidy beard. So, thank you, JK Rowling, for a brand new, more inclusive word to replace what was once a misandrous and heavily gendered word. I'm glad to see you finally come around on this issue of pointlessly gendered language and finally see the value in making small efforts towards inclusiveness. See, it doesn't take much effort at all. How much time do you spend thinking up beardsplainers? Nothing, right? I mean, you're a writer by trade. You know how to use words. Took no effort at all for that inclusiveness to happen. It is exactly the same as recognizing that not all women menstruate, not all who menstruate are men. We live in a wonderfully complex society and old constructs don't last forever, do they? JK, I earnestly hope this is the first step on your recovery path away from the toxic and destructive road of petty and vile and mean and hateful turfy radicalization that you've been on for some time now. Beardsplaining is now the official way to describe the masculine, but not necessarily male, urge to ferociously correct someone, even if you've not carefully or thoughtfully established the level of their own ignorance on the subject matter and if they needed correcting at all. Just, assume they're an idiot and beardsplain to them how very stupid they have been. Or indeed, just how much of a JK Wrongling they've been until you came along to beardsplain it all to them. See, wordplay is fun. Now when someone is being really, really stupid and ignorant for no particular reason, then you can call them a JK Wrongling. It's kind of diminutive and cute. They're a little wrongling. Oh, look at little wrongling. All they need is some beardsplanation to help them out. Thank you for watching. I am Blunty, and I will catch you next time. Thank you as always to the patrons up above there, who are probably none of them wronglings, and hopefully only a few of them are beardsplainers. This should be a series. Blunty Beardsplains.